words, because you said about all members of this meeting. That's why I hope that our conversation will be very interesting and very useful for you. And I hope that you will put questions for our guest, and I hope that we will have very interesting answer on this question. I wish success you, and I wish interesting time for us. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, once more, hi guys, and nice to be here. And I'm happy that you understand English. I give lectures every year to 3 universities in Japan. I talk about peace, I talk about artificial photosynthesis, and I talk also about something called the philosophy of Kyosei. Kyosei means, it's a Japanese philosophy meaning that you want to be friends, you don't want to be enemies. So even if it's a corporate, if it's, you know, big guys, Toyota, Sharp and so on, they have adopted this philosophy. So my intention here would not be to give blah, 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 talk about 30 minutes and, you know, about something and then you might or might not like, but I would rather like to stimulate a discussion with you. You might or might not have some questions, which I hope, to me, which I will then try to answer to the best of my capacity, my ability. For those of you who don't know, I'm the, as you heard, I'm the great-grandson of Ludwig Nobel, who was the brother of Alfred Nobel. Alfred was a very smart man. I wish all of you would be the same. He had 355 patents, and of course he invented dynamite. And many people say, why didn't he choose mathematics? Why didn't he choose biology or astronomy and so on? Because it was simply that he was only interested in the 5 subjects that he himself was engaged in. He was a physicist, he was a chemist, he was also very interested in literature. He had a huge library he read himself up in Björkborn. I've been there. And also he was unfortunately, shall we say, influenced by his chemistry work. So he had headaches, he had heart problems, and the doctor prescribed, suggested that he use nitroglycerin for his heart, which he felt was rather ironic, of course. But anyway, Alfred Nobel was a good man. He was a very honest, very upstanding, very Swedish morality, you know. No corruption, no under the table, nothing. He was very strict. So, but he still managed to create dynamite. And how did he create dynamite? He did it for the simple reason that his father, Immanuel, and he started a factory called, you know, the Nobel blasting oil, which was nitroglycerin. Sobrero, the Italian chemist, invented glycerin. But the glycerin was a very dangerous substance, very dangerous. You shook it like that, boom, and you heated it, boom. Every little thing, you had to be very careful with the nitroglycerin. So they had a factory in Stockholm, and with the security conditions of that particular factory was very bad, very bad. So there's even a story that the workers, when they had these wheelbarrows that were the wheels were lined with iron, that when you ran it on the floors, you got boom, 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 small explosions from the drops of nitroglycerin who had been dropped. There was no security. There was no. So you can imagine what would happen sooner or later. Big explosion. His younger brother Emil was killed, and that led him and his father Immanuel never recuperated. So what I'm saying is that Alfred Nobel had the idea of personal engagement into changing nitroglycerin, very dangerous, into something safe. And he started to experiment for many years, and then he invented dynamite. But You know, guys, like I do, what is the problem with a totally safe explosive is how do you make it explode? Because if it's safe, it doesn't. You can throw it in the fire. You can throw it on the floor, and nothing happens to it. So he had also his other invention. Alfred's second invention was the blasting cap, and that was just as simple because without it you couldn't get dynamite to function. Anyway, to make a long story short, I give lectures on Alfred Nobel and the Nobel family many times, but I don't want to burden you with it because I want to establish a dialogue with you and I have questions. And the thing what was happened was that he transformed an industry with black powder or nitroglycerin into a safe, industrial, attractive thing. This is what you should do also. If you can come up with something that the industry, the world, the society needs, the world will accept that and you will make a fortune. So he ended up, to finish the story, he ended up one of the world's richest men. And why did he choose, again, I come back, why did he choose the Nobel Prizes? Why didn't he choose mathematics or astronomy? It was simply because he chose the subjects, as I told you before, the ones that he was interested in. He was interested in peace because he was in love with a girl, and the girl, was very much into peace, Bertha von Suttner, and also that he was interested in chemistry and literature and medicine. Medicine, he had problems, so he was interested in medicine. But he was not interested in economics, unfortunately, because he became one of the richest men of the world without having anything, he didn't really work hard. He worked very, very hard on it. But he was not, I'm sorry to say, he was not a happy man. He was never married, he had no children. He was only afraid of one thing, is to end up dying all by himself alone, only surrounded by his servants. And this is what happened in the Mio Neo, which in his home in San Remo, where I've been to. So he died all alone, one of the richest men in the world, with 355 patents in everything. He was a very, very clever man, but he ended up all by himself and no family, no nothing. So in a way, I don't feel something that you should try to imitate too much. You should be happy in life. And what I would like to do is we talk a little bit about science. Now the science is terrible or very good. Because if you look at it, most of the inventions of today have been benefit to the mankind. But some of these can also be misused, as you know very well. I mean, you can take a stick of dynamite and either you use it to get rid of rocks or you use it to kill somebody with because you throw it. It all depends on you, not depends on the dynamite itself. So same thing with the medical inventions, for example. X-rays are very very useful. You can see what if they have a broken leg. I had a broken leg 2 months ago. Without the X-rays, we wouldn't know what was wrong with it. On the other hand, you have too many X-rays, you die from overexposure. So anything can be either good or bad. Same thing that Alfred Nobel, he wanted, as we heard today, to create a weapon so dangerous that no other nation could use it against another one without being, he would like to give this, I would call it almost a terror balance, the mutually assured destruction to every nation on earth. And that is for Ukraine, it's an interesting concept. If every nation has the capacity to kill the other or to devastate or destroy the other nation, it's going to be difficult for somebody to attack somebody, obviously. But he never did, but he was into arms most of his life. And I would say that whether this is good or bad, construction of arms is not what I like to see science to be used for. I'm into medicine, I'm into medical. I was part of the member of the group that invented MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, or magnetic resonance scanners. 3 Nobel Prizes, Purcell and Bloch, 52, and then Lauterberg and Worthington and so on. All of them have ended up in Nobel Prizes. So sometimes Nobel Prizes is what interests people, and I would like to answer questions you might have when it comes to Nobel Prizes. I was chairman for the family, and I therefore represented the family, and I met all the Nobel Prize winners. actually a number of them here, except for the peace. I went a couple of times to Oslo. And I must say, these are very nice men, or women, very nice, because they are exceedingly knowledgeable, obviously, but they are also very humble. They're not prestigious in any way. I'm really pleased that the Nobel Prize winners that I have met are usually quite modest people. And you know, they are willing to accept to be pushed here and there and so on, you know, to come and give little speeches like myself. And it's fine. I think that the world needs prizes. There are hundreds of prizes around the world. I don't know how many of you knew that. There is Nobel Prize all the way up on top, and then you have for medicine, you have Lasker Prize, and you have you know, the Fields Medal in mathematics and so on, that are on the second level, and then you have hundreds and hundreds of prizes. So what do you have to do? This is important. What you have to do to become famous in prizes is that it has to do with reputation. The reputation or the selection of a prize is very, very important. Because the prize, if you just, lots of money doesn't mean anything. And you have a typical example of the Master Prize of Abu Dhabi. They asked me to come and organize it. I said, no, never. Because why? Anybody can propose, so you end up with hundreds or even thousands of proposals. And then, they say, we're going to be more important than the Nobel Prize because we're going to give $1.5 million instead of $1 million. It doesn't matter. Reputation and selection is what counts. So my interest besides peace is I'm the chairman of something called the Nobel Sustainability Award, or the Sustainability Foundation in Switzerland. And what we will do, we got the money yesterday, yes. So the money will be used to organize an award and a conference and so on. And I would like to see Ukraine to be part of the, shall we call it the family or the association that will decide who will get the prize for next year or in 2 years. 2 years eventually. So this is just a little brief summary of what I would like to talk about, and I would really like, I know it's not easy for you. You sit there and you're very comfortable and you listen, blah, 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 he talks. But if you could be so kind to raise a question, I'll do my very best to answer it. Because this is how we do it in Japan. Normally you submit the questions to me, I come and I try to answer it. And I want to establish a dialogue with you, not to talk forever about this. So, okay? Is there anyone to have any questions about Nobel family, myself, the Nobel Prizes? I see a good man over there. Good, thank you. Shall we try to give him a microphone? Okay, thanks.
That's the reason I'm here.
Good exercise for you, and you know, and
I think I have much of exercise these days.
excellent. Yes. I want all of you guys, really, honestly, think you must have some questions what you would like to talk about, and I'd be very happy to engage in such a talk if you can. Just one question. You don't need many.
Do you hear me? Yeah. So my question is, do you think that your success is the part of your family? So do you think that your last name helped you to reach success?
That's a very good, very good. And unfortunately, I have to admit, yes, because I wish I could be, shall we say, succeed without the name, but it's clear that the name has been, you're absolutely right, the name has been tremendously helpful. Because automatically, you know, I'm a professor, and then I get honorary degrees, and it's a self-perpetuating, because you get known, and then little by little you get more known. So absolutely, unfortunately, yes. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's true, it helps me. But on the other hand, you don't need a name to be successful. Absolutely true. I mean, Steve Jobs was very successful, but Jobs is not a name like Nobel. So you do it on your own, and I want you to think about advancing on your own after your studies here, what to do with your life. Not to make a lot of money necessarily, to buy more things. I don't do that. But the less you are interested in success, in commercial success, the more money comes in. I'm absolutely convinced. The less interested I am in money, the more the people become interested in me. But yes, name.
Mr. Nobel, tell me please, everybody knows that your talk very interesting, but can we read your words, like maybe did you try your hand in literature?
I'm not sure I got that question. What is the question again?
Have you written maybe any poems or something like this?
Any poems by you?
Yeah.
Poems by me?
Yeah.
By me?
Yes.
No. No. Yeah.
Maybe
I've done,
autobiographies.
oh yeah, good point. But my work is exceedingly boring. You know, it is the use of hydrogen gas for replacement of a diesel engine. Blah blah blah. It's not. I'm not interesting. It's not a poem. It's not inspiring as a technology. You know, the words. No, I wouldn't recommend it because you will fall asleep, and then I would have problems waking you up. So that, unfortunately, not. No poems. Strangely enough, Alfred Nobel, not many people know, he was actually very interested in poetry, in theater pieces and so on. So he actually wrote a play, and he also wrote other things which I have read, and you know, he was, for the 19th century, it was rather a different style than today. But I mean, he was interested, and the family has had, I can see, very little interest in that sort of thing. So I'm sorry, I can't help you there.
Mr. Nobel, you represent such a famous family. And what are the main advantages and disadvantages of being a part of such a great family? And what traditions in your family are handed from generation to generation?
Yeah. I would say that is a very good question, and it's a hard question to answer, because I would say almost, you know, that what is the role of the heritage, of the genes that you carry on, and also of education. And I think, personally, it's a combination of the both. Because the family Nobel, from the beginning, was farmers. They were peasants, and they had a territory, and no particular education or anything. And then one guy decided to go to Uppsala, to the Swedish #1 university. So he changed his name from Olofsson, which was a very common name, Schmidt, and then he decided to Nobelius, from the name of the village, Nobelöv. And then he went to Uppsala, and he was not particularly intelligent. I mean, except he shortened his name. He took away the IUS to Nobel, and he shortened in the 18th century. But he had the very good to marry a brilliant lady, a brilliant girl, Vendela. And Vendela was the daughter of an absolute genius. He was absolutely genius. I don't want to go into him, but if you read about the family, you'll find that he was good in. He was called actually her father, the Leonardo da Vinci of the North, because he was good in everything. And I think the genes of the family, and also of course the family, was of very good help in the children, because later on Emanuel, Ludwig and Robert, and they all come up with brilliant, and but again they were educated. So we talked about that yesterday. At 16 years old, Alfred Nobel spoke 4 languages fluently. So you can't do that unless you have a certain gene, certain intelligence, but also you must be trained. And all of them received excellent educations. So your education here, plus your, I'm sure, natural intelligence will combine for it. But ever since then, I think there is a risk that the family, to some extent, has not manifest any particular interest. I have, without thinking about it, I wanted to find new things that interest me. I don't want to be bored, so I wanted to go. So I started something with a guy after my doctorate in science in Lausanne University. I said, what should I do with my life? And then the idea, a friend of mine came to me and said, oh, there is this crazy professor in Downstate University in Long Island who comes up with the idea of curing cancer. Ah, cancer is cool, let's do that. So I went over, and for 26 years I worked in the magnetic resonance imaging. So there it turned out to be a success. Everybody said, no, you're crazy. Why do you, how do you say, spend your time or lose your time doing this? So yeah, how you waste your time of standing here. So sometimes you are faced with a decision of where to go in your life. Now I have because first thing, educate. Very, very, very important. It's getting increasingly difficult and increasingly necessary to have a good education if you want to go on. The first thing people will look at, what have you done? What's your background? And so on. So I think all of you are here. Thank you for coming, by the way. Then I think that what you should do is get this degree in education, and then you must decide which way you want to go. So I decided I would like this. It goes this way or that way. I sit on eight company boards today in very sophisticated cancer research clinics and so on. Why? Because I think I want to look back and say, hey, I tried to do something in medicine. I like to say, you know, I just didn't make money. I can and I will, and I am able to make a lot of money, but that is not the issue. The issue is doing something that you really feel comfortable about, I think. So that's, but the Nobel family has not shown itself to be very, shall we say, prominent in research or anything like that. We have a couple of them, doctors, but they haven't made anything in our own.
I'd like.
There's one guy here.
Okay, just a minute. I'd like to ask a question to our young audience. Do you know who was the first one to win the Nobel Prize in physics? The first, 1901, the first Nobel Prize in physics. Who was he? It was Röntgen, the guy who invented X-rays or founded them or discovered them. So next time you unfortunately enter the X-ray cabin, remember it was the result of the efforts of Nobel Prize winner.
Thank you. Mr. Nobel, I would want to ask, do you feel you've reached your self-actualization, that you've done everything, which if you look back, you've achieved everything and you don't have to move forward anymore? Like, reached the top of the self-actualization?
Please excuse me, can you say again?
Have you realized everything you had dreamt of? Did you reach the self-confidence?
That's an interesting question. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly that. I'm 76 years old, and looking back, I have a number of academic degrees. I have a number of positions in the world. I go around, travel around the world and so on. Many people say, wow, this is cool. No, only if you say, looking back, this is a very good point, because that is exactly what I want all of you to do. Absolutely. When you have gone on, you say, what shall I do, or what have I done with my life? And you have only one life. And I talked about that yesterday. Unless you believe in reincarnation, that when you die you have a new life in the Buddhist type of sense, this is it, man. This is what you're going to have. So better use it well. And if you're looking back, this is exactly what I would like to see. Hey, I think I've realized most of my goals. I tried in my small way to do a little bit better in your life, or to do a little work in peace and so on. I didn't make much money, or I do a little bit of research. I didn't make much money. Many people say, I want to make a lot of money. That's bullshit. This really is. Because when you make a lot of money, very soon, I met a guy, I have to tell you, excuse me, I have a guy in Houston, and you know what he did? He came up with the idea of micro purchases and sales of shares. Very smart. What happens is that the computer buys 100,000 shares and sells it a couple of microseconds later. In the meantime, it's gone up with very little, and he became a billionaire. And he says, Dr. Nobel, I have 19 cars. Most of them Rolls Royces and Ferraris. And I said, And I have a home which is 3,000 square meters, including a Egyptian mummy, which is true, and it's like a museum. But his wife and his children had left him. So he had all the money in the world, but I didn't think he was very happy with life. And I met a lot of people, and these are famous, shall we call it, artists and so on, and film stars in Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood, in Los Angeles for a while, and I don't think they are very happy, frankly. So what I'm saying again is, if you look back, you should look back and say, Jesus, I had fun, I had it pretty cool. People like me, because this is important. Not like Alfred Nobel, he was well liked, but he was all living by himself. Be sociable, be happy with yourself, and do something good for humanity. Do something for the other people. I don't know if that I answered your question, but at least I tried. Anybody else? One guy here. Is this okay?
I have a question. I realized there are Nobel Prizes for literature, physics, and everything. But I'm wondering, why isn't there a Nobel Prize for arts? Why?
Arts, on the other hand, is a very big subject. Any particular part of the art?
Arts can be diverse, obviously, because there's arts and literature and everything. But I mean art in the sense of graphical arts, art you can actually see and everything, unlike literature, which is quite bothersome, because there's a Nobel Prize for literature, but there's not any Nobel Prize for art, so it's kind of confusing. Why not? You know?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would only say that don't forget that Alfred Nobel made his will in 1896. This is a fair long time ago, right? Right, guys? So the thing is that at that time he was not interested in art. I have been to his homes in San Remo, in Björkborn in Sweden, and there's no art. I mean, he had very simple taste. He liked literature. He read. So he was sitting there with one of the biggest fortune of the time, and his family was richer than he was, his brothers, having the Nobel oil. And what do you do with the money? Well, you select a couple of subjects that is interest to you. And I don't think that he was very much interested in art, frankly. I've never seen anywhere that he showed any art. So many people have come to the Nobel Foundation and says, hey, let's do a new prize, biology or mathematics and so on. No, you can't change a winning concept. If the concept is good, you shouldn't change it. Because then where do you stop? You add what? Biology, astronomy, computer science, art. They are all worthy subjects, but they are not something that we should change, because part of the fame of the Nobel Prizes lies in the fact that nothing very much changes. Fundamental. He wants fundamental things. Otherwise you risk becoming, inflation in prices. Oh, we add another one, and where do you stop? Even, I'm sorry to say, I know this is not very popular, but I'm saying this, even the Prizes Economics is a copy of the Nobel Prizes. But it has over time become a Nobel Prize in Economics, but it has to stop there. And one final thing is I wanted to do a prize for environment. This I think is very important, because we have a lot of problems with the atmosphere and the pollution, the CO2 emissions, global warming, and so on. And I wanted to give a prize, but we have to have an understanding with the Nobel Foundation that we don't want a 7th Nobel Prize or an 8th Nobel Prize. We have to keep them separate.
There is one more reason for not being, for not existing any prizes for arts. You see, when you read a novel that's voluminous, it says lots of things about how to live, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, or Thomas Mann, or something like that. When you see there's a sculpture or a painting, well, there could be some idea, but Nobel was interested in making humanity better. And from this point of view, literature, of course, the number one tool, okay? Not painting, not a symphony or something like that. Okay.
Mr. Nobel, I believe that each nomination of the Nobel Prize is useful for humanity, but how do you think? What is the most important nomination of the Nobel Prize?
Am I hearing you? Is it the most important of the inventions?
Yes.
No, there's none. There's 700 and some of them are very important, some of them have shown to be of no importance, like the prizes in medicine, you know, but the most important, well, I take it from my own, I would say the Alexander Fleming and the penicillin, the antibiotics has been one really great use for mankind. William Röntgen, 1901, exactly the same. Röntgen has shown to be, this is very important point, that you don't want the invention or the work of somebody to be of use to humanity. And that is included in the Testament. It says, you know, who during the preceding year has invented or discovered the most beneficial to mankind. This is a key, I think. And very often over the time, a lot of inventions have been made that I do not really see where the use for humanity is. So what do you mean by importance? Is it who saves the most people? Who brings the most happiness? What is it you think? Can I ask you that?
Maybe brings the most happiness.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it can be the most important for humanity. It can bring something new in science or in medicine. What do you think? What is the most important? What is the most useful?
Yeah, I don't know, because as I said before, most inventions can also be used for negative purposes. So it's hard to say. I think that many of these things, you know, a man who writes, or woman who writes a book that influences a lot of people moving towards peace would be very, very useful to humanity, because we are having a terror. The subject of this conference is peace, and I'm sorry to say, looking statistically, we have a lot of non-peace items in the world, you know. The cost of arms, the cost of wars, the cost of violence are horrendous. Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars costing the humanity. So I would say peace, where you can really show that there is a peace, not giving the prize to the European community or to what is her name is Mother Teresa. I mean, this is great, but I mean, you want something that can actually have an effect. I would like to say, for example, you have, I think it is it Colombia, South America, where after 15 years of unending fighting, they finally reached a peace agreement. A guy who's been, I think is Norwegian, was part of it. They should have a Nobel Peace Prize. So you can't expect to be, out of 700 prizes, find one or five that are the most. All of them have had, hopefully, in some small way, an effect. And that is all I want. And I think that's fine. I think that's fine. If you can show, at least it should show some benefit to mankind.
Thank you.
Well, you are the famous scientist, and I'd like to know what influenced your choice of profession?
Profession as a scientist or the field of science? Well, this is, you know what I did? I can tell you what I did. I was making very good money as a director of communications for a finance company, an American finance company in Brussels. And I had a wife who was very happy to be there, and so on. And I said, I don't want to be here. I think this is shitty. Why should I try to sell shares or bonds or obligation? I don't want to do this any longer. I want to go because for some reason I got this feeling. So I said, let's go to Switzerland. And my wife said, are you crazy? What are we going to do in Switzerland? I said, I will start working in the university because for some reason I felt this is the way to go. And I said, what can I do? Well, we start with mass communication. Mass communication, very important because communication can influence people. And I want to influence people. So I said, I will start to work as a psychosociologist, sort of a psychologist for drug addicts, young 15, 16, 17-year-old at the Free Center for Drug Addicts, really making no money at all, and making my wife very unhappy. But I was content because I could find to some little way I could help people. And let me tell you, drug addiction is not a very easy thing to get out of. So we had everything. You know, the Lausanne University or the Lausanne authorities, public health, didn't know what to do. What can we do with these, you know, the people returning from Kathmandu, they're smoking pot and, you know, oh, pot, they will die. You know, everybody's drinking alcohol, no problem. So I said, we have to do something, and we started to work in this drug rehabilitation clinic as a, you know, as a research. It was nothing. So what I'm saying is, but I was very content, and then I decided, I went on, and then I did my PhD on it, and I started to work in the Institute for Social and Preventive Medicine. I went to UNESCO, I went on to UNI. So it a little bit has to do how motivated you are. But if you do, I didn't make any money, but I was very, very pleased with myself. And this is a little bit how it started, the academic career of myself. I really like this. This is cool. Cool to receive the questions, and they are very good questions.
Well, you said that you're the great grandson of Alfred Nobel, yeah?
No. He was never married. He had no children. We all come from his two brothers.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I guess we still can say that you're the descendant of the man who, so to say, gave birth to one of the most prestigious awards in science.
If you want, but I'm not sure that I.
Well, my question is if you have received any awards yourself for your achievements in science.
Okay, thank you. I will send you my background. I have about 11 honorary professorships were given to me by universities. I have, I would say, about 10 what I consider awards given to me by various organizations around the world. They mean nothing because very soon it's like money. Very soon you get another award. Okay, you know, the latest was in Kiev, the cross of St. Michael by the Patriarchy of then. Wonderful, but it's number 8, 10. Anything that is too much, it's probably like having boyfriends or girlfriends. If you have too many of them, it becomes less interesting. So I would say the same thing here. How many of these were given to me because my name is Nobel, and how many of them are given because I really did something? I don't know. That's a good thing. But be careful. Very, very quickly, you feel, okay, I made, you know, you did this, I did that, and I succeeded, and so on. It becomes not boring, but less important in life. So choose your values in life very carefully, what you want to accomplish, want to do with your life when you go on. Very important. I don't know if I answer your questions, but the family name has of course helped me. That would be foolish to say, but I would like to think I could have in some way succeeded without my name. Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, my question is, I want to understand how you deal with your challenges if you're a professor in science field, because we should understand the fact that there's challenges all over. So I want to know how you deal with them and how your reaction to the challenges, and I want to know exactly what kind of challenges you faced during your time. Thank you.
It's a big question and would require a complicated and complex and long answer. I can only say that maybe I'm fortunate. Maybe I being a Swede, so I don't come from one of these refugee camps in northern Africa. I have a name which is universally respected. I have a certain background, so all of these things help up. How do you overcome the challenges? I don't know. I just know that if you are persistent, if you feel, hey man, this is what I want to do, or I want to pursue this education, you have an excellent university here, and you get a degree from this university, and you build up, but give it some thought. That's all I ask you. Give it some thought. Sit back and say, hey, how can I succeed with my personal life? I think that is more important than making a lot of, I'll make a high grade, I go into banking. Many people today, especially in Japan where I teach, they say, oh, we want to, make money. We want to be successful. Yeah, but successful is making money. That is not the challenge. What is the challenge? It's up to you to do it. Name-wise, you might not be able to, but you have an excellent chance in this university to come out with a good degree, and then if you want to go, after an MBA, normally, I went on to a PhD, that's not necessarily necessary unless you want to go into academics. But if you do MBA, usually doesn't matter where you come from, what your race is, your language is, your culture is, and so on, you can get a good job. Anyway, if that's what you want. But choose something that you are really like to do, that you are motivated on.
Okay, I heard you, I reckon you talking about this conference is mainly about peace, yes? Is the Nobel Peace Prize by any way connected to the United Nations? And the Nobel Peace Organization has certain, like you said, we want to give awards which in this generation has a certain impact in creating peace. So do you guys have a certain charity or a certain organization where you're assisting in creating peace? Because in this generation we're living, the 21st century generation, is where there's a lot of terrorist groups and a lot of wars and traumas are happening in the world. So what are you guys doing? What are you impacting besides giving awards to create peace?
We don't even give out awards. I mean, the family, if you ask me, the family is completely independent of any prize giving. We have no support, except maybe spiritual, but the committees, our Nobel Committee in Oslo, and which are dependent upon the parliament and the political parties, they are the ones who select the Nobel Committee in Norway. We have nothing to do with it, and we do not support them except a grudging sort of, yeah, okay, there was another stupid candidate this year, okay. But this we don't do. The family, I'm sorry to say, I wish I could tell you differently, has very little to do with the selection of or nothing at all actually, to do with the prizes.
Okay, so which, is it connected to the United Nations?
No connection to the United Nations.
No, any other organization?
No. The Nobel Prizes is a political invention it's really politically motivated and has nothing to do with the United Nations. In fact, the United Nations has been given, twice or three times, the Peace Prize. Kofi Annan, I think I got it, plus with the United Nations. Yeah, exactly. Or some organizations of the United Nations, but they are not connected. They are given.
Why have you chosen Japan for teaching, and from your point of view, what are the most democratic countries in the world?
Can you say again? I wasn't sure. Can you say again?
Are the most democratic?
Democratic?
Yes.
Countries?
Yes.
Why did you choose Japan for teaching?
Again. It's a pure, I was asked to come. Again, things happen in life, and I wasn't choosing, I have to go to Japan and start teaching. So I went to Japan, and there was a Mikael Nobel Alternative Energy Conference organized by the Japanese. I was professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology for 5 years. So they, would you like to come? Okay, I come. So I went there, and then little by little, other universities say, hey, this is pretty cool, well, let's invite him. And then it grows. So I was purely by accident. I had no selection of my own to get there. And Japan is I would warmly recommend you all to go there, because it's a different country, a different culture, and a different philosophy in life. I like it, actually, to be there. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be there. But I didn't choose it as a way of life. It just ended up that way. I think this young lady over there wants to...
Yeah, Mr. Nobel, my question is short but very interesting. Do you like to be famous?
Do I like to be famous?
Yes.
I love it.
Why?
Yeah. Why do I like to be famous? Probably because it has to do with respect and recognition. Dr. Nobel, you are a rock star. Oh, you're cool. And the girls line up to take their photos with me. That is the key.
I will take photos.
Yeah. No, seriously, I think that it is not something that I like it, but it has grown by itself. It has grown by the fact that you don't try to chase it. Don't chase anything in life. It has a tendency, like a boyfriend. If you chase a boyfriend, he has a tendency to run away. I'm talking here. And the same thing with fame or with professions or anything you do. Don't work too hard on focusing on it. It will come to you. It comes to you if you are reasonable. And I like being, in the sense that I'm recognized. Everybody, this is part of the thing that has not a monetary value necessarily, the recognition. So Mikael Nobel, because I like to believe that I had something to do with myself. Not only because of the name. The name is not enough. There are, I would say, several hundred Nobels living in Stockholm which have done nothing with their lives, and they carry the name, but they live very discreetly and so on. I live in a more open, a more exposed time, and I like to believe it's not only because of my name, but also because of the things I've accomplished. So, is it good? Yeah, there's a lady here, I think.
Thank you. Well, we know that Alfred Nobel was a good and successful man, but he didn't have a family, maybe because of his successful life or in other reasons. But I want to ask you, what means success for you? And do you think that success in business or our job is the most important thing in our life?
That's I like to sort of, if this is the last question, I like to end with this, because this is very important for all of you. Success, please sit down. Success is not depending on being, wealthy and so on. He had all the money. He was one of the richest men in the world. He never married. He had unsuccessful relationships. Can I tell you briefly? The first one was when he was a young guy. He fell in love with a girl who was a pharmaceutical assistant in Paris, who he was very much in love, and she died from tuberculosis, which was a frequent malady at that time, sickness at that time. So he was devastated. And then this, I would say, not very clever man, wrote 30 letters before the internet, before computers. He wrote 30 business letters per day. So said, this is too much, I want to invite somebody. So he invited Berta von Suttner to come from Vienna or from Austria somewhere, and he fell immediately in love with her. And you know what this idiot did? He left her sitting in a hotel room, and then he went on a business trip. And business trips were not taking an airplane, it took forever. So in the meantime, she was sitting there, and she was bored probably, and she says, I want to have my fiancé back. So she came back, and all the rest of his life he was in love with her, but never ever. So the Peace Prize originally comes from the fact that he continued to be deeply engaged in her. And then for the last parts of his life, he was together with this very young flower-selling girls, Sophie Hess, also from Austria, and frankly speaking, he said, oh, you must educate yourself, you must learn, you must be a good girl, you must, move ahead in life. And she says, yes, darling, can you send more money? That was basically what she was after, because she was 25 years younger than he was. All I'm saying is that, and then he died, as I said, all by himself. So this is certainly not something that I would like neither myself nor you to experience. To have that, you should work hard and you feel success in your work and your life, and that is more than enough. So he did not manage to succeed to be very successful, except if you look at his background, he invented dynamite, Nobel Prize and so on. He gave the money because he had nowhere else to do with the money. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit, I have to be honest here, but I think one of the reasons was that many people do the same thing. They're sitting with huge fortunes. What am I going to do with the money? I can't just give it to my relatives. They were richer than he was in any case.
Thank you for your questions. I wish I were asking all those questions. They really were interesting, but unfortunately time is up, and probably we should thank Professor Nobel for answering all those questions, for being here with us. Maybe Anatoly Alexandrovich Zadoya wish to add at least a couple of words.
Yes, I have some questions to you. Was this meeting interesting for you or not? Interesting. Would you like to be invited the same meeting in future? Yes, and I would like to invite Professor Nobel to visit our university every year. Do you agree with me? Yes. Yes. Thank you very much.
So your doom is sealed.
Hi guys. Thank you. Let me say you're a good group. You really are, because sometimes, not in Japan, not in China, not in America, but in Sweden, you see the guys sitting there and looking at their telephones, and you see people say, "Oh yeah, man, what is latest?" So on. So no, you didn't do that. You actually seemed interested. So thank you very much for doing that.